You've heard endless takes on boomers, millennials, Gen Z, but Gen X gets treated like background noise. And that's the mistake. If you've ever wondered why certain people stay calm in chaos, hate being micromanaged, and would rather fix a problem than talk about how it feels, there's a Gen X fingerprint all over that. Gen X, roughly 1965-1980, didn't just grow up different. They grew up in transition, analog childhood, digital adulthood, big promises, constant disruption. In this video, I'm not going to stereotype them as cynical or tough. I'm going to show you the hidden logic behind their emotional style, why they value privacy, why they trust competence over titles, and why they often look detached when they're actually scanning for consequences. By the end, you'll understand three core forces that shaped Gen X: unsupervised independence, broken institutional trust, and a learned habit of emotional control. And once you see those forces, Gen X stops being mysterious and starts making perfect sense. If you're Gen X, you'll recognize yourself. If you live with one, you'll recognize the patterns. And if you manage one at work, you'll learn what motivates them and what instantly shuts them down. So let's start with childhood. Most Gen X independence didn't come from motivation books or strong mindset quotes. It came from empty houses. Many Gen X kids grew up letting themselves in after school. No parent waiting. No snack prepared, no one asking how their day went. You learned fast. If you were hungry, you cooked. If something broke, you figured it out. If you were scared, you handled it quietly. This created what psychologists call self-directed survival. Not dramatic survival, practical survival. You stop expecting rescue. You stop waiting for permission. You stop assuming someone will notice. That's why Gen X adults rarely ask for help early. They troubleshoot first. They Google, they experiment, they fail privately. It's also why praise doesn't drive them much. Their reward system formed around solving problems, not receiving validation. But there's a cost. When you grow up managing yourself, emotional needs get postponed. Feelings become secondary to function. You learn to stay composed even when things hurt. So today, Gen X often looks emotionally distant, but it's not coldness, it's conditioning. They learned young that showing vulnerability didn't change outcomes, action did. And once that wiring is installed, it doesn't disappear. Gen X didn't grow up believing systems were stable. They watched corporations downsize their parents. They saw political scandals on nightly news. They lived through recessions, layoffs, and broken promises. So instead of learning authority knows best, they learn something else: titles lie. Skills don't. That's why Gen X doesn't automatically respect managers, leaders, or institutions. Respect has to be earned through results. If you're competent, they'll follow you. If you're just loud, emotional, or bureaucratic, they mentally check out. This is also why Gen X hates micromanagement. To them, constant supervision feels insulting. Their nervous system reads it as, "You don't trust me," and once that happens, motivation drops fast. They prefer clear goals plus freedom of execution. Tell them what needs to be done, then step back. This mindset also affects relationships. Gen X doesn't respond well to emotional power plays or dramatic confrontations. They value directness, honesty, and practical solutions. Say what the problem is, fix it, move on, no theater. Because in their world, competence kept you safe, not charisma. And that belief still runs quietly in the background of everything they do. Gen X didn't grow up in a culture of emotional processing. They grew up in a culture of handling it. If you were stressed, you worked. If you were sad, you distracted yourself. If life got hard, you adapted. There wasn't much space for long conversations about feelings. So emotions became something private, managed internally, not shared publicly. That's why Gen X often appears emotionally reserved. They don't instinctively narrate their inner world. They don't overshare. They don't turn discomfort into identity. Instead, they regulate through action. They clean the garage, they go quiet, they solve something. This creates a common misunderstanding. People think Gen X doesn't feel deeply. In reality, they feel just as much, they just don't broadcast it. They learned early that expressing vulnerability rarely changed outcomes. Staying functional did. So today, when things go wrong, Gen X doesn't spiral outward. They compress inward. They become calm, practical, and focused. But here's the hidden cost. Because feelings were postponed for decades, many Gen X adults struggle to name emotions in real time. They recognize stress only when their body forces them to stop. They don't collapse dramatically. They burn out quietly. And unless you know this pattern, you'll completely miss it. Gen X doesn't show loyalty loudly. They don't post about it. They don't announce it. They demonstrate it through consistency. If they commit to a job, a partner, or a responsibility, they show up, even when they're tired, even when no one is watching. But here's the key difference. Their loyalty is conditional on respect. The moment they feel taken for granted, manipulated, or treated like a replaceable part, something switches off inside them. Not dramatically, silently. They stop investing emotionally. At work, Gen X values autonomy more than perks. They'd rather have control over their time than free pizza. They care less about office culture slogans and more about whether leadership actually knows what it's doing. In relationships, they struggle with modern emotional theatrics. They prefer steady presence over constant reassurance. They won't flood you with messages, but they'll fix your problem at 2 a.m. This generation learned that love is practical. You help, you protect, you provide stability. And because they grew up watching things fall apart, Gen X often becomes the invisible backbone, holding families, teams, and systems together without needing applause. They don't need to be seen, they just need things to work. Gen X stands in a strange place. They remember life before the internet, and they learned to survive inside it. They raised themselves, then raised children in a world they barely recognize. They watched institutions fail, yet kept showing up anyway. That's why Gen X often feels invisible. They don't complain loudly. They don't demand attention. They adapt, but adaptation doesn't mean ease. Many Gen X adults carry quiet fatigue, not burnout that explodes, burnout that settles. A lifelong habit of being the responsible one, the fixer, the steady presence. They learned early that no one was coming to save them, so they became reliable. If you're Gen X, understand this. Your emotional restraint is strength, but it's allowed to soften. You don't always have to carry everything alone. And if you love or work with Gen X, remember, they may not express needs clearly, but they notice everything. Respect their competence. Give them autonomy. Speak directly. Because behind that calm exterior is a generation shaped by uncertainty, still holding things together quietly. Not because they enjoy it, because that's how they were built. If this video made you see Gen X differently, let me know in the comments. Are you Gen X, or did this explain someone in your life? Share your experience below. I read every comment. And if you enjoy psychology content that goes deeper than surface labels, content that explains why people are the way they are, make sure to subscribe to this channel. More honest psychology videos are coming. Thank you for watching.